everyone, welcome to the third episode of RPG Core. I'm Ali, and if you recall, in previous episode, I mentioned some problems with our character, with our camera, and we're going to fix those today. Now, first things that are easier to fix. One, I don't want my, where is it? Yeah, here. Slide limit being connected to my character controller. So here, when we are going for sliding, we add a public value, thank you, public flow, public int slide slope equals to, yeah, why not 45? And here I simply going to start, and instead of this guy assign my own slide slope. Now if you check it back, by the way, I made prefabs from these two. My slope limit is still 90 degrees, and I don't want this guy. Remove component. Come on. Yeah, Unity freezes. Oh, by the way, I forgot. I got my hand, don't ask me how, on Unity 4.6, and this is beta version 7. I'm downloading the beta version 9 now, but guys, we have the good stuff, hooray! Anyway, some of this lagging and freezing can be because of my beta. Anyway, now in character motor, we have our slide slope equals to 45 and our slope limit equals to 90. I bet that now, my character dropped. Okay, move it a bit high. Come on, not that high. I am Mr. Archer. Yep. Like this. Okay. So I should be able to move up from here. No problem there. But here I shouldn't be able to go up. The reason is that when you are here, for example here, if I frame here, you will see that my character controller is deciding this surface as a surface that it's standing on, and it's not 90 degrees, it's not 45 degrees even. So my character is just calculating one of these two surfaces for calculating the slide slope. Okay, so it's perfectly zero and I'm not sliding. But when it comes to here, for example, it's now sliding because the slope is greater than 45. Hooray! So we have tried one of the goals, and for God's sake, why is this map so dark? I know why, because it's on a baked lighting, and for some reason it's not happy with my character. Anyway, okay, the next fix that is easy to do has to do with my RPG camera. When I'm calculating the desired distance, get desired position, where is that? Get input, no. Okay, in position update, we are putting our position equals to desired position, but I should keep in mind that I have a distance somewhere. Start, input, desired position, and here we go. We are checking that if it's less than 0.5, I'll just make it this. Okay? But as I said, I don't like hard-coded numbers, so I will add public float safe min distance equals to 0.0501 f. Okay? And I'll use it here. Where was the check? Come on, down. One is here, and one is here. I'll come back to the errors later. Was that all of it? Get input. One is here, and one is here. And I'll just need to copy this and paste it here. Okay? Any other place that I'm using that weird number? Yeah? If it's greater than settings dot save min distance, and we should be okay now. So saving it, going back, play. Come on, compile already. Okay, now the question is, can I go nearer and lose the control? Yeah, I still can do that. Why is that? My distance is number, so if I put here, and distance is 5, not that. Okay, sorry. 1. Do you behave? At least now that I have the control. And better, but not yet. So 0.1, and I go inside, of course. Yeah, I hate it. I have a way to look around, but it's not working. It's not working. 0.5. What the hell? And I think I shouldn't do it on... Oh, yeah, I shouldn't do it like this. So 0501 and yeah, that's safe. In this sense, this needs to be here. 0.05 0.05, because at the end of the road we are just tweaking numbers, and we saw that on, yeah, what the hell, yeah, I forgot the F keyword here. Come on, run, and let me join in, and I still have no controller. So Control C and Control V, Control V. Here 0.05 F, 0.05 F. It wasn't behaving like this on the other scene. I'm not sure why it's behaving like this now. Still no control. So zero point 0.05 F, and now I have the control. Okay, but again 0.5 in here is a hard-coded number, so I'll go with Control V minus 0.0001 F. What the hell? Okay, so come up Unity and play for me. That should be the same, yeah. And of course I can't see my legs yet. Now what if I bump it up? For example, I make it 0.06, not 0.6. It should still work, of course, and it works. Yep. So going back, on both get desired position and get input methods, we replace that hard-coded number with the settings, and in the last check, when we are looking at target in position update, we are just decreasing a very small number, so the camera still will be back and work. Now, one more thing. Remember I said that my camera height is a hard-coded number here. I don't want that, but I have a number here, camera bottom distance, that I can use. Okay, so I put 2, and you will see that nothing happens. There, everything is like the same. Okay, so now I can use that number here and say plus settings dot camera bottom distance. and save it. And if I go back, now my target look at should be around the top of the head. Come on, compile. Will you? Thank you. So if I play, and you see I'm looking from high, and camera pivot, it's sure on top of the head, and my camera is again higher than that, so I'm looking way higher than what I should, but I like this, you know. Okay, so we solved the issue with camera, we solved the issue with player, but we need to remove this method from here, because we don't want this to happen here. What can I do? Going back into scripts folder, if I minimize these, custom editors, no helpers, no, I need another new folder, but I will do it here. Scripts, add a folder and call it scene managers, or I will call it just game managers, or even better, managers. Now in managers I will add new script, but not like this. What did I do? What did I do? Okay. Managers, alt insert resharper and class. Call this class scene manager. Okay. And of course we want it to be from mono behavior, and it will add the using Unity engine on top. We don't need namespaces, and one of these days I will make a video tutorial showing you how to add your own templates to alt insert from resharper. Anyway, so scene manager from mono behavior. Now we need void start method here, and we will add void camera setup here, another one void spawn player here, and for that we will need, from top of my head, public transform or game object transform, and that would be spawn point, and more descriptive player spawn point. Okay, in the start we will first spawn the player. Okay, after that we will do the camera setup. Now the camera setup is here, we already have it, and we add it here. Okay, camera pivot, we need that. And we don't have it. Okay, so from here if I comment this out, I will get lots of error, huh? Yeah. Okay, we can't comment it out. But here we will say camera script dot camera pivot. But before that, I think I will have an instance. I don't have instance. Interesting. Okay. One thing, yeah, I have instance here. Camera script. Anyway, okay. Uh, and I need camera script again to be added here to access its game object dot instance. You kidding me? RPG, I'm dumb. Dot instance dot settings, and instead of this here I can say RPG cam dot instance dot uh, camera pivot. Any other errors here? No. Okay, now in here everything should be okay. I will remove this method. I will have one single error here because we don't need the camera setup here. Okay, so in Unity, I will still keep the, come on. Keep this guy. I need to make an empty game object, and I will reset everything on it, and I will call it scene manager. With an underline so that it goes to the top of the list. Come on. Will you sort? You won't sort, huh? Eh. Why don't you sort? There you go. Scene manager. Okay. And on top of that, I will need to add another one of these menu components. Yeah. On top of this guy. But I will call it RPG manager scene. So now I can add component RPG. Yeah, come on. Add component. Are you compiling? RPG manager scene. Okay. Now I have to add a spawn point here, and we'll create an empty game object here, and we will move it here, move it here. The easiest way, put it on Archer, reset everything, and then move it out of the Archer. Okay, frame on it. It's right, yeah, a bit on top of the floor. That's good. Move it a bit down, and I will call it player spawn point. Okay, and I will add it to, oh, not here, I will add it to scene manager. Okay, another thing that I need here now is to give this guy a way to understand what we want to instantiate, and that would be public game object player prefab. Okay, from prefabs folder. Okay. Come on, what takes you so long to compile? Compile, please compile. Okay, and I add it to player prefabs. Nothing will change. The only thing that will change is that if I don't have a camera and I hit play, I should get a camera and a camera pivot, but what's going on now is that my camera has main camera, RPG camera, okay, but now we don't have the player and I have some error. First of all, no reference here because RPG player motor instance game object transfer. Yeah, it should work. Oh, I know what's going on. Yeah, it should work anyway. Angui? I don't have Angui. Eh. And again, line 72. An RPG camera now. Line 72. Yeah, because we are setting the what the hell? It's on a start, not on a bake. Okay, let's go line by line and see what's going on. Before that, let us first spawn the player. Okay, so I will make a private game object and I will call it player. Now in spawn player I will say player equals to instantiate. It needs an origin. It will be player spawn point dot transform dot position. It needs an orient it needs first the object. It's player prefab. Position, it's player spawn point dot transform dot position. And orientation, it is player spawn point dot transform dot rotation. Okay, and we add as game object here. So we instantiated the player, and here we will say instead of this, or you know what, let it be there. Let's go step by step. Now clear please, and in hierarchy I will delete archer. Let's play it. So we will have the archer here for sure, and yeah, we have the archer clone. Okay, in the what the hell, okay, Mr. Archer, please get rid of this component. So first we get the player, we get the camera, it's tagged as main camera, it has the RPG camera script, it will create the camera pivot, and if I move the camera pivot, it's not following it, okay, because it's not assigned. Okay, something interesting. When I check if I have RPG camera.instance, it exists. But even though it exists, it can't access its settings. Maybe because it's another class. Let's do this. Let's ruin everything in here. So yeah, let's ruin everything in here. Okay, and I'll comment these guys to get lots of errors. Not you. From here, Control X. All we need here, Control V. And instead of these, I will say distance. Distance. There is a reason people don't use serializable classes after all. Because that's the only thing that comes to my mind. A serializable class is not being read when you add the class. That's interesting if it's that. Okay. I hope I don't have any errors now. At least regarding my typings, changing the classes. Nope. Okay. Now if I hit play, please, please, please work. Will you? At least I don't get any null reference errors. And it says camera pivot. But now mouse control is not working because I said initialize equals false. Okay, and that blah you saw, because I'm checking the instance class. So, and that was the case. Funny, isn't it? That was the case. So at the end, if I do everything, I say initialize equals true. And now, finally, everything should work. And it's not working. And it's not working. Still not working. Because inside of here, I forgot to call it. Okay. RPG camera dot instance dot initialize. Please work now. I'm so close to pulling my hair and hey, everything's working. So, what was going on and why I'm getting null reference again? What the hell now? Oh, play image. Okay. Yeah. This is the last thing we need to address. Ah. And our length is 0, isn't it? Prefabs. In camera. Player mesh size 0. So, why it's returning null? I'm saying if player mesh dot length equals 0, then return. What's the problem here? Yeah. Late update. I hope I'm calling it at the end of late update. Yeah, and okay. This is one of those funny things. Again, I say if yeah, if player mesh dot don't have size because it's not list, we have length is does not equal to 0. That's another way of doing it. Then do all this freaking stuff. Bam. Control S. You still will yell at me as no reference? Nope. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just cut it here and go into late update, and I say, hey, you know what? If length does not equal to 0, yay, what did I do? Character fade. Still yelling at me? You shouldn't. You shouldn't. And still yelling at me. Well, this is interesting. Another one of those funny things. You say, hey, please debug.log player mesh dot length. Will you please? And then, please for timing. Comment these guys. Thank you. It should return 0. You. Player mesh. Do I have it here or don't I have it here? Yeah, I have it here. Oh, God. Should I say... That should be irrelevant, but... Should I say... Instance dot... Player mesh... Settings... Oh... One of my bad habits. Okay, we don't have these two at least. Clear. still yelling at me. 104. 104. Yeah. This shouldn't be that. Say if I'm not sure how can I check that. Player mesh equals to null and debug.log. Wow, that should be the case, at least. That's the only thing coming to my mind. Although it exists, and yeah, it doesn't exist. It's equal to null. So if we initialize it here and say, you know what, where is it? Player mesh, come on. Equals to new game object of 0. Will that work? Please. Yeah, now it's working. Okay. So, yep. Okay. Now we say, so we had to initialize it at least to something. Now we say, instead of all of that, delete and delete. So, now the last part of the problem, although this video became so long, I will edit it, and lots of that going back and forth will be just fast forwarded very fast, and then at the end I will go back to what I had done and why I had done it. So, last part. After the final initialized, we say set player meshes, alt enter, and now here, alt enter, create method, it's void, and delete, and I don't like this private board. There we go. So here I need to, if I remember correctly, player mesh is an array of game objects. I just now assigned it and I don't remember it. Yeah, array of game objects. So we need game object array of temp, and then we say temp equals to, and remember we still have the player, dot find, no, dot transform, dot find, no, children, find child, no, not that, no, dot get component in children. Oh no, child count, and this should be int. No, let's do it game object, then another int count, and we say count equals to this. Then we say for I less than count, do this. Say if player transform dot child, get child, and it needs index of I dot get component of renderer or even better material dot mesh renderer. Okay, we say maybe I need a list of game objects, call it obj, and by the way, when I added list, it adds system collection generic on top. Okay, we say obj.add what we need to add, this guy. C v dot game object. Okay, and I need to assign it to new list of game objects. At the end of the for, you say tmp equals to obj dot to array. Okay, and then we say rpg camera that instance dot player mesh equals to new game object, but here we say temp dot length. Okay, and at the end we say this guy equals to there you go, equals to temp. Okay, if everything works, now when I run the game, I should see all the meshes under the player, and maybe not the player itself. We'll check that. So player mesh is still equals to 0. Don't need mesh renderer. I think if I check this guy, arrow for example, skin mesh renderer, and we say material. Okay, if I check for material, what I'm doing, this guy, renderer dot, no, let me see, if I say game object dot renderer dot material. Okay, so if we have renderer at least, then do that. Would we be correct now? Lots of the stuff I do now I never had done. Like always, if you remembered my radar minimap series, bit shifting, converting layer names to bit shifting, whoa, whoa, lots of fun. Yep, so we added everything, okay? And if you look, the player itself has no mesh renderer, okay? Now a good question. At least now I have everything. And if I go now into this guy should boop pop out, okay? Now another question. If I make a cube, we know that it has a renderer on it, okay? We make a prefab from this cube. We delete the prefab. Scene manager, we say, hey, this guy is our player. The question is, will the cube itself being added to the camera? I don't think so. That's just, we are checking. Yep. And what the hell? Why is it right this now? RPG motor, blah blah blah. Okay. I forgot something very important. Very, very important. Good thing I tried it. Now, when I instantiate it, you say if player get component RPG motor equals to null, then player add component RPG motor. There. Good thing I tried it with a cube without anything. Clear? Now if I play, I should see the cube. The camera should jump to the cube. And the cube is falling because of the capsule collider on it. If you check the guy, and there is the character controller. Sorry, it was high up. The question is, yeah, my size is 0, and that was all I cared about. Okay, so at the end of adding the list, we say if player no inside the parentheses, if player that get component and renderer, then we say obj.add player. So now I should see the cube itself in the list. And if I go now, yeah, the cube vanished. And if you see, yep, the player itself is in the list. So finally, we are done. Believe it or not. Finally. Oof. File, save scene. Please frame here. Okay. And that's high up. No, that's okay. So what did we do in this episode after we solved the issue with the camera itself? And here, now I can say rpg camera instance dot please camera button distance. Okay, so after we spawned our player, up until here, video was going right and smooth. Here was the problem. Let's start with seeing what we had done. First, we check if the camera is null, make a game object, add the camera, tag it by main camera, and I emphasize it. This tag is what tells Unity which is the camera of the main. Okay. After that, we check if the camera pivot is null, then we create it. And let's say that it's not null, or we create it, define it, and assign it to pivot. And then we check if we have that RPG camera component on the camera main. If we don't, we add it. If the pivot is null. Now, why do I check it differently? Because let's say that we have a camera and we added the RPG camera component, but we forgot to add the camera pivot. Or, like we have here, we have a main camera. The main camera has the component, but it doesn't have any pivot. So if I add it into the scene, come on. If I add it to the scene, now I have a main camera, okay? Because the camera is main camera. It has the component, but the pivot is null, okay? So I'm checking that situation. If the pivot is null, then add this transform of pivot to that camera. So on top of that, remember, at the update, we check if we are not initialized. Initialize, first we spawn the character. Now we set the camera. Now we want to finalize the camera. For the finalization of the camera, we had a big problem, something I never encountered. Before, in previous, or I should say in episode 1, we had these serializable classes. And when I was adding the game objects into the game, these serializable classes worked, but we don't need them. I moved every one of those settings, like these settings and the axes, inside the main class of RPG camera, and I removed everywhere when I said settings dot or axis dot inside the camera settings. Okay, that's one part of it. Then we can say, hey, okay, first of all, the parent of this guy is here, okay? And I will move it after this. So first we say, hey, get the position of the player and put it there, but add the bottom camera distance that we set to the Y. Then parent the pivot to our player, okay? And instead of that, I can say player.transform. It should work the same. And after that, we say, hey, call the initialize method of the camera. Now, in initialize method of the camera, all I'm doing is I'm doing what I was doing in the start method, okay? So we don't have update anymore. And then in late update, then we were checking if the camera pivot was null. Now I'm checking if I'm still not initialized, then return. So until I initialize, until I call it and successfully finish it, I have nothing to do with the camera. As soon as I've done that, then I get the input, then I get the desired position and the update position. But remember, we got lots of null references because I didn't initialize the player mesh to anything. It was null. So when it was null, of course, this line of code would return null, and null can't be 0, okay? Or null.length can't be 0. So that was the error. So we initialized the player mesh to an array with 0 length, okay? Then here, when we done the final initializing, we came back and say, hey, set the player meshes. We get the number of children in the player transform, okay? Then we iterate through it, check if it has the renderer component. means that it has a material on it. Then we add it to a list, not array, to a list of game objects. This way, I can freely go to the list and add one by one without initializing an array of objects time and time again. At the end, we check if the top parent one has the renderer too and add it. After that, TMP, as you can see here, is an array. To convert a list that is IEnumerable to an array, we can call toArray function of that. And when we had done it, we again initialize the player mesh to a new game object array that has the length of this array we define now. And finally, we say, hey, this array equals to that array. So it may seem a bit confusing, but let me show you a very fast, very ugly way of how I use initialize. Well, when you want to use the initialize, you need a private, not in here, in here. You need a private boolean and call it initialized, and by default it's false. Okay. Now in any method like update that will go continuously. Okay. So void update, we do this. If we are not initialized, then we call a method. I use initialize method. Okay. And thanks, ReSharper. No. Please. No. That's fine. Initialize with capital I. Okay. And we say create a method. This method returns nothing. In this method, I do every basic setup I need. At the end, I say initialized equals true. So what will happen? I do this when I want to do some things for sure after the end of every start method. This way, when the first time update goes on in the first frame of the gameplay, it will run initialize method, and if everything goes okay, then the initialize will become true, and the next turn the initialize is false, won't work, and the rest of the update will work. As simple as that. Going back to our camera example, you see, I don't call initialize anywhere in the camera itself, but I call it here. When I'm doing the final initialize, now I can say, hey camera, do the final initialize with me. And when this guy is going on, in here, final initialize, in the scene manager initialize method, and the scene manager initialize method is happening in update. So in the first frame of the game, I say, okay, do I have the scene manager initialized? No. Then initialize it. And of course, this guy should go naturally at the end. So what will happen in the very first frame of the game? First, I will spawn the character. Second, I will do the basic camera setup. Then I finalize the camera setup. Then I set player meshes. And then I say, okay, I'm initialized, I'm done. And by this point, the camera should work because I called this initialize method and I set the initialize here to true. Now, after the very first update comes the late update. And in the late update of the camera script, I say, hey, is the camera pivot null? Here, I made sure that it's not null here. Okay, now am I, as the camera script initialized, here at final initialize, I make sure that it is initialized. So if everything goes okay, camera works on. If not, just return and wait for the next update. That was the bulk of it. Okay, so let's go through the code once more and finish this bad boy. Oh, by the way, in spawn player, I forgot to check the RPG player motor and add it. I added it later. So this is our scene manager. Okay, so in the first run, we go into update, and you know what? I can even do it in start method now, making sure that it happens before any update. So in the start method, I check if I'm initialized, then I say, okay, I'm initialized, I'm done, blah, blah, blah. If I'm not initialized, I spawn the player, and I set the script on the player. Then I do the camera setup. So I check if the camera exists or not, if the camera pivot exists or not, if I have the RPG camera component, and if it has the pivot in the component script. After that, I set the pivot's position, I parent the pivot position, and I initialize the camera. Okay? When I initialize the camera, now I can say, hey, because you remember, in the initialized camera, when I initialize the camera, I go through this guy. And in the very first late update, I will pass through it, because it does have nothing. Now, if I want to work correctly, precise, I should move this guy from here, end of the guy here, or better, here. Okay? So in final initialization, when I final initialize, please. When I hit this point, I know that I have the character, I know that I have the pivot point, I know that I have the camera, I know that the camera knows where the pivot point is, I know that the pivot point is parented to the player, so everything is ready. The only thing I need is just this guy. Okay? So if I want to tweak any kind of, for example, stats on the player, I can do it here. Or if I need to move the player to somewhere else, I can do it here. Anything that I want to do with these guys, I can do it here. Then I set the player mesh character, and then finally initialize the camera. Now here is a very special place that I can add children time and time and time again to the player. For example, if you have a set of hairs, that player can use customizations on them. Here is one of the places that you can load those meshes from resources, add them to the player character, because after finishing this, we are assigning all those meshes to the list. So if you want, for example, armor, weapon, hair to be added to this list, you should do it before this list, namely in final initialization. Okay? And that's why I didn't rename it final camera initialization. No, we are doing every initialization before setting the player meshes, and then you say, hey, camera, everything is okay, go play, do the stuff. Okay? Now, I'm not sure, honestly I'm not sure why that system serialization didn't work. Now if we go back into Unity, at the end of the road we have something like this on the camera. Oh, come on, RPG camera script, please show. Okay, we have this, all of the things inside here. Well, I may not like this interface. After I finished the mechanism animation on my character in next episodes, maybe a few episodes, I will come back to main camera. I will start making a custom editor for this guy to make it at least a bit more interesting. And one of the things that I'm sure is that I don't want to see the player mesh. Okay, I don't want to see it. How can I do that? Two ways. One, I can say hide an inspector and it won't show. Another way is to make this guy a property and initialize. Before doing anything else, I set it to new blah 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 this guy. Okay? Or another way of doing it is when you make a custom editor window, don't add this guy into that editor window. That's simple. Okay? So this episode on recording took me 2 hours 16 or 17 minutes. What you guys will see is much less, and sometimes when I'm doing the debugging I will do 6 times fast. Don't get confused. The only thing I done to the camera is that I removed everything from those serialized classes inside the main class of RPG camera. Then I added an initialize method and moved everything from start in here, and I checked that if the camera is not null, the camera pivot is not null, do this. In late update, I check if the player mesh is not equal to 0, then do this and move that part from character fade. In get input, I used safe minimum distance. Same as get desired position, I used safe minimum distance. But in position update, I subtracted a very little fraction from that safe distance instead of all those 0.05 f. Other than that, I moved everything from camera setup here to my scene manager, and I already explained what is going on in scene manager time and time again. I will just scrub through my code so that you guys can see what is going on in here. Player motor. The only thing I had done in player motor was that I added a slider slope int as public somewhere. Slider slope int, and instead of using the controller slope, I assigned it here. Nothing else is going on here. Nothing has changed. Okay. It was lots of back and forth jumping between these two, especially, but I hope you could follow it. And at the end, now we have a system that one uses a spawn point inside the scene manager and spawns our character inside. Second, checks if any problems exist with my main camera or the player camera or anything like that. The only thing that I didn't check is that if I have a camera pivot now, game object, create empty, 2, camera pivot, okay, and if I parent it under marker, Will I get duplicate here? Oh, of course, before doing that, I need to hit apply and delete. And now, I really hope not. Player, camera pivot, main camera, and where is my camera pivot? And what is this guy? Yeah, the same camera pivot I had. So game object.find works okay. Okay, last thing is that in my script on camera I need to tweak one number. Camera bottom distance equals to 2. That's all. And by that we are done, guys. Finally we have a very precise camera system, a very precise character motor system. In next episode, of course, I will start using this animator and animation controller and go into animator, and yeah, we will start the sweet age of using Mechanim. Finally, Mechanim, yeah. That would be more than one episode. That would be more than 1 or 2 hours. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have fun. Bye bye.